While South Africa and United States relations have weakened of late, South Africa and the United States have a complex and multifaceted relationship that spans various domains, including diplomacy, trade, security, and cultural exchange. In March 2025, the United States expelled South African Ambassador Ibrahim, declaring him persona non grata. Secretary of State Marco Rubio accused Rasool of being a race-baiting politician who harbored animosity toward President Donald Trump and the United States. This expulsion followed Rasool's critical remarks about the Trump administration's policies, including its stance on diversity and equity programs, which he perceived as part of a broader supremacist agenda. Relations between the two countries had already been strained due to previous actions by the Trump administration, such as halting financial aid to South Africa over disagreements regarding land policies and international legal actions involving Israel. In response, South Africa expressed regret over the expulsion, but reaffirmed its commitment to maintaining positive relations with the United States. Ambassador Rasool was given until March 21st to depart from the U.S. Here are some key aspects of South Africa-U.S. relations. Historical context. Apartheid era. During South Africa's apartheid era, the U.S. had a mixed approach to South Africa. While the U.S. government officially condemned apartheid, it had strong economic and strategic interests in the region, often prioritizing the containment of communism over direct action against apartheid. End of apartheid. In the 1980s, under pressure from activists in Congress, the U.S. imposed sanctions on South Africa, contributing to the eventual end of apartheid. When Nelson Mandela was released in 1990, U.S.-South Africa relations began to improve. Diplomatic relations. Political engagement. South Africa and the United States engaged diplomatically on global issues, such as climate change, peace and security, and human rights. They often collaborate on multilateral platforms like the United Nations, the G20, and others. Challenges. The relationship faces challenges, including differences in foreign policy. South Africa has maintained a neutral position on Russia's actions in Ukraine, which has been a point of contention with the U.S. and its allies. Economic ties. Trade and investment. The U.S. is one of South Africa's largest trading partners. South Africa exports goods such as gold, platinum, and automobiles to the U.S., while the U.S. exports machinery, chemical, and agricultural products to South Africa. The U.S. is a significant investor in South Africa, with interests in mining, energy, and manufacturing. African Growth and Opportunity Act. South Africa benefits from a U.S. trade preference program that gives sub-Saharan African countries duty-free access to the U.S. market for certain goods. South Africa is one of the largest beneficiaries of AGOA, especially for exports like apparel and agricultural products. Security and defense cooperation, counterterrorism. Both countries collaborate on efforts in regional security, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. They work together on initiatives to combat terrorism, peacekeeping, and instability in countries like Somalia, Nigeria, and the military relations. South Africa and the U.S. have conducted joint military exercises and cooperate on peacekeeping missions in Africa. However, South Africa's neutrality in certain international conflicts has led to tensions with the U.S. in some areas. Development and humanitarian aid. HIV/AIDS programs. One of the most prominent areas of U.S. involvement in South Africa has been through health initiatives, particularly the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. The U.S. has contributed significantly to South Africa's fight against HIV/AIDS. Other development assistance. The U.S. also provides funding for other development projects in South Africa, focusing on education, governance, and economic growth. Cultural and people-to-people ties. Educational exchange. There are strong educational and cultural exchange programs between the two countries, with thousands of South African students attending U.S. universities and vice versa. Shared interests in sports and arts. The U.S. and South Africa share an interest in sport, especially basketball and soccer, and have a rich exchange in arts and culture with various American cultural programs and events held in South Africa. Challenges and areas of tension. Trade disputes. There are occasional trade disputes, particularly concerning agricultural exports. For instance, U.S. agricultural groups have raised concerns over South African trade barriers on products like chicken and agricultural subsidies. South Africa's foreign policy. South Africa's foreign policy decisions, particularly its positions on Russia, China, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, sometimes differ from the U.S. stance, creating diplomatic friction. In summary, the relationship between South Africa and the U.S. is multifaceted, encompassing cooperation in trade, health, security, and diplomacy, while also facing challenges, particularly over foreign policy differences and global security concerns. Don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with the latest.